Today, let's dive into the work of the incredible author Amitav Ghosh. He has this really powerful and frankly challenging argument about why our culture, and especially our fiction, is just failing to get to grips with the reality of climate change. So this is the big question, right? It's what drives everything he's talking about. I mean, we are living in an age that is completely defined by the climate crisis. It's this slow motion disaster happening all around us. So why, he asks, are our most serious, celebrated novels so quiet about it? It's a huge paradox, and it really gets to the heart of the matter. And here it is, straight from him. You see, Ghosh isn't just making some casual observation. He's pretty much filing a formal complaint against literature. He's arguing that our main way of telling stories is actively looking away from the single most urgent threat we face. The big question is, why? Okay, so to really unpack his argument, here's our game plan. We're going to start with his diagnosis in The Great Derangement. Then we'll look at the uncanny challenge and our historical blind spots. After that, we'll see how he answers all this in his own fiction, and we'll wrap up with his pretty surprising idea for where we go from here. All right, let's get into it. First up is Ghosh's diagnosis. He lays out his whole case in his nonfiction book, The Great Derangement. And he breaks the problem down into three main parts: how our stories are failing, how our history got us into this mess, and why our politics are so completely stuck. We're going to tackle in one by one, starting with the stories. So first, the challenge for our stories. Ghosh argues that the modern novel, the one that's so focused on realism and what's plausible, is just totally unequipped to talk about climate change. And why is that? Because its effects often feel, well, uncanny. So what exactly does he mean by uncanny? It's not just that something is strange, it's that really eerie, unsettling feeling you get when something familiar suddenly becomes deeply weird. It's when reality itself seems to bend in a way that feels both impossible, but also weirdly recognizable. It's the kind of stuff you'd find in myths and folklore, not so much in realistic novels.
We see this kind of thing all the time in stories that break away from strict realism. Think about the magic in Salman Rushdie's Midnight's Children, or even in Ghosh's own novels, where you have a daughter who's passed away but her mother can still hear her voice, or spirit guiding a boat through a cyclone. These are exactly the kinds of uncanny events that traditional, quote-unquote, serious fiction usually dismisses as just genre stuff, like fantasy. So here's the crucial point, the big connection. Ghosh takes that literary idea and applies it directly to our world. A bomb cyclone, a river in the sky, wildfires that literally create their own weather systems, these are real things happening right now. And yet, they sound like something straight out of mythology. They are uncanny. And that's the problem. Our novels have trained us to expect the probable, the everyday. They just don't have the language or the structure to deal with the increasingly improbable reality we're all living. Now, this trouble with the uncanny isn't just a literary problem. It actually feeds directly into the second part of Ghosh's argument, history's blind spots. He claims our inability to tell these kinds of stories is rooted in a massive historical shift in how we even see the natural world. And this right here illustrates the core conflict perfectly. For centuries, you had indigenous cultures developing knowledge based on respecting nature's power. It was common sense. You don't build your city right on the coastline, because you know the ocean can and probably will take it back. It's a managed retreat. But then the colonial and imperial mindset came along, and it was the complete opposite. It was all about conquering nature, believing any problem could be solved with a bigger wall or a better machine. And so they built cities like Mumbai and Miami right on the water, totally erasing those older, wiser ways of thinking. So you're a novelist, and you've just diagnosed this huge problem with novels themselves. What do? Well, if you're Amitav Ghosh, you answer with a novel. He wrote Gun Island as a direct response to the very questions he raised in The Great Derangement. Gun Island is basically his attempt to write a story that can actually rise to the challenge of this moment. It fully embraces the uncanny, using myths and legends. But here's the really clever move. He filters all these unbelievable events through the eyes of rational modern characters. This strategy makes the uncanny feel grounded, it makes it feel believable, and it bridges that gap for a modern reader. And the story isn't just in one place. It jumps between India, Venice, and Los Angeles, showing how the climate crisis is this truly global interconnected web. And he's not just hinting at the crisis, he literally embeds the vocabulary of climate change right into the pages. Words like floods, wildfires, tsunamis, fossil fuels, coal, they show up again and again and again. He builds this body of language that makes it absolutely impossible for the reader to ignore the reality that's humming just beneath the story. The crisis isn't just a backdrop, it is in the very DNA of the novel.
But Ghosh's argument doesn't just stop with a literary solution. No, he pushes it even further into his most provocative and surprising conclusion, a path forward that moves beyond stories and history and right into the world of politics and what we can actually do.
So he poses this really critical question. If the systems that created this mess, capitalism, imperialism, are the problem, and if our governments seem completely paralyzed, then where on earth can a truly global mass movement for change actually come from? And his answer is probably not what you'd expect.
His answer is that the solution lies outside of conventional politics. He argues that we have to engage the massive organizations that already exist, the ones with global reach and the power to mobilize millions. And for Ghosh, the most powerful and overlooked of all of these are religious groups. Now why? Because they are some of the only truly global networks that go beyond national borders, that think in terms of deep intergenerational responsibility, and that operate on a moral, sacred level, not just a purely economic one. He believes this is where the real momentum for change is hiding, right in plain sight. So we end with this really powerful idea. For Amitav Ghosh, the way out of our great derangement isn't just about writing new stories. It's about finding new, or maybe very old, ways of coming together on a global scale. It's a challenging, really unexpected vision, and it leaves us with a final, crucial question to think about. If our stories have failed to grasp the reality of this crisis, is it maybe because we've forgotten how to believe in the unbelievable?